Hello, everyone, and welcome to Alan's Viewpoints, where I give you a chance to get more than just one single side of a story, give my point of view on what I see as happening, and maybe talk about how we might start to solve some of this stuff. And over the last few days, it's really come into play is what's happened with ICE and get people to understand a little bit about what's happening with immigration. And I know more than most. I've gone through the whole immigration process with my wife, who's originally from the Philippines. I went through it with three of the five her five children. Um, and then I'll tell you what's happened with one of the other children that is in the process that God only knows when things will get done. So um, we'll see. I mean, we are dealing with the federal government. We are dealing with an immigration process that changed dramatically in the last 6 months, and there's big reasons for that. And we're going to go over some of that. And let's see. So let's get into it. Well, this topic is going to be immigration, and um, let's see. C number. Here we go. So let's see if I can't. There we go. Hopefully we can hear this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Um, I don't want to say it's my pleasure to be here with you because it's not. It seems like day after day we're up here saying the same thing. But I want to begin by thanking our city attorney for her leadership, her fortitude, and her determination to make sure that the Constitution is upheld in the city of Los Angeles. We are
Note that.
united with the other cities in the region, and by the way, that started from day one when the first raids happened on June 6th. We immediately reached out to our colleagues in other cities. We have 88 cities in our county. And knowing that what was happening in LA would soon be in other cities as well, we wanted to make sure that we were all kind of on the same page, all had the information. But what we have experienced over these last few weeks has just been shocking. As the city attorney mentioned yesterday, seeing troops, some on horseback, ride through a children's summer camp, disrupting that, traumatizing the kids, although we don't know if they actually knew. We hope they didn't because they were ushered downstairs out of the public eye in order to be protected from their military. And I will tell you, I talked to one youngster, 8 years old, I just went up and talked to him, and he immediately started expressing the fears he has over ICE, unsolicited, and I don't think that he was aware of what happened. But you have a situation now where people are walking down the street, a car will pull.
She's raising them here.
For a remedy, as we are today, it is critical that we use every single venue, every single possibility of seeking justice, and that's what we're doing today. And I do hope that the courts especially issue this injunction and stop this. But one thing about our city, and I say this every time because I think it's so.
All right. So what Karen Bass was asking for is she wants the laws of the federal government for immigration that were set up years ago and defining who could be here in the United States and how people get here to the United States. She is saying that she wants that all gone. She wants a different process in place so that the illegals, and I'm sorry, they are illegals. They came here without paper. They did not go through the process to get here. My family came through the process. I went through the process. Now, I'm not saying I'm smarter than most people. Um, I did manage to get my wife through the process. And from the time I signed it to the time we actually got her through and got her green card was 6 months. That was back in 2009. I could have done it 2 months quicker had I known that in the process I should have taken her to a surgeon general and had her checked medically and provided that report with the whole thing. I could have sped the whole thing up by months. Little did I know. No lawyer, no nothing. Now I have had an advantage. I have had stays at the Holiday Inn Express, so obviously I slept good and I felt smarter the next day. So shout out to Holiday Inn Express. I love that. They made me smart enough to get things done. Not a doctor, but hey, if I stay at a Holiday Inn Express long enough, could I be a doctor? I don't know. But she wants to abandon the laws that are on the books of the federal government. It says if you come across the border, you've crossed illegal, you've committed a civil crime that's punishable up to 6 months in jail. Generally, we don't. And by the way, don't worry. The Biden administration let millions of people in when they should have been turned away. They gave them asylum. They just gave everybody asylum. It didn't matter. What is happening in the countries south of the U.S. border that requires them to have asylum here? Well, the only thing that they have for that is so that they can get to this country, get a cash-paying job. In other words, take money away from people who could be doing the job in the United States and have a job. So those people who are legal, natural-born citizens of the United States, they take those jobs at lower pay. Then they send a large majority, and I can go and show you this. I've got a number in a chart somewhere that will actually show that they were sending 2.6. I'll find it. It's amazing. It's like $63 billion back to Mexico. Well, that's $63 billion that's not invested in the United States of America. And that's what they want. I'm sorry, but this is slave labor. When you're bringing people in who are undocumented and you don't have to pay them a fair wage because you know that they can't go and say anything to anybody or they'll be sent home, or you want to make them legal. So we make somewhere between 10 and 30, maybe 40. I've heard numbers oddly enough, I've heard numbers as close as 50 million that have been here for decades. So you bring them all here. You make them all citizens. Now we actually do have 340 million people in this country who are citizens. Those people aren't going to do those jobs because they won't have to. They will bring another 15, 20 million people across that border to do the jobs under the table. Because this is what happened when Reagan was in. Reagan did this. Reagan did what these people asked. And he regretted it. He made them legal citizens. So, but let's listen to a little bit more of her, and then I'll go into my other pages here. So, click the right button here.
Our city is definitely united. You don't see dissension here. You see a city that is united because this is who we are. We are a city of immigrants, and we will stand with Angelenos regardless of what country they came from, when they got here, or why they're here. And so with that, I am proud to stand in unity as we file this lawsuit and seek justice, and hopefully that will come in the form of an injunction. Thank you.
It will not get an injunction. The U.S. laws supersede anything that the cities and states have done, and for them to block and do the sanctuary city stuff is against the federal law. You're promoting slavery, and she knows it, but she doesn't care because she's got undocumented workers taking care of her. So she wants her undocumented workers. The people fighting for this either are in college and don't understand what's happening to these people. So they get human trafficked across that border. And I'm sorry, there is no other way to say it. These people are human trafficked to come across the border. Now, there are a fair number that come across and overstay their visas. Matter of fact, Elon Musk was one of those. Now, he went through the process and eventually became a legal, naturalized citizen, like my wife. And that's going to happen. We want legal immigration. You know, you come here, 500,000, maybe upwards of 1 million might get approved in a year. They assimilate. They become integrate into the United States. They become part of the United States citizens. But when you're flooded with 10 million, 15, 20 million people who aren't trying to become citizens and force the language of an area to go from speaking English to speaking Spanish, and I'll use that as an example. I know some great Latinos, work with them. They're absolutely fantastic people. But they don't like what's happening when it's flooded across and is just happening what it is. You dilute what happens with democracy. Now, a lot of this is used so that these people can then change the census and get more. If you didn't have this, illegal immigration, or the illegal immigrants were not included on the census, and I believe in a couple ways you need to do it. First, with the census, you do need to count everybody. But if you can't prove that you're a legal citizen, you should be marked as maybe on the form it's a non-citizen. Now, that non-citizen doesn't mean that could mean that you're on a green card. You're not a U.S. citizen yet. That you're undocumented. Those non-citizens do not count towards apportionment for Congress, but they do have to count those people because it's those numbers where companies manufacturing food and bringing food to the market, they need to have a rough idea how many people they're feeding every year. You know, if you're off 10 million people, that's a lot of food. What happens when you're short by 10 million? We'll say 10 million multiplied by 365 days multiplied by 3 meals a day. That's a lot of food. You know, that's a lot of food. So what happens when you're short? Well, guess what? The price of the food goes up. So the net effect of what's happening with the illegals getting here is that you have cost of all the costs rise. And I'll show that in this slide here. So start from the beginning. Here we go. Oh, now that's interesting. So now that I've got a minor technical glitch, well, now that is very interesting. That didn't do it. sources. Oh. Oh, there it is. And properties. My illegal citizen slideshow. There we go. All right. So here's what it is. Yeah, you got the estimated cost of illegals in the United States. And this is where these people just don't care. And sorry, Karen Bass is feeding everybody a pile of crap. And so is every politician that wants us to have this happen. And everybody who's out there who doesn't understand what illegal immigration brings you, here's what it brings us. So the following information is to give everybody a basic idea of what's happening at the federal, state, and government levels. So what's happening with spending. And they are on Medicare. In California, they've got Medicaid. Whatever the version of that is. Minnesota has the illegals on, had them. They just voted recently to remove. They came out whining that it was the toughest thing that they had to do is they had to remove the illegals from Medicaid. Well, yeah, you're blowing out the budget. We only have so much money to take care of people. And when you put all the illegals on there, you have very little left. So let's get this. Let's get to this next one. So we'll go down one. Come on. All right, so we'll get to... Well, now that's very interesting. My slideshow doesn't want to be a slideshow. There it is. All right. So what happens if you've got 5 million illegals in the country? If we're only paying $5,000 per illegal, it's costing us $25 billion. But what happens when it's costing us $25,000 a year? And that's going to be schooling, medical, you name it. Somebody giving birth in the United States at a hospital is going to cost $25,000. That's $25,000 right off the bat. So 5 million illegals is going to cost us $125 billion a year. But what if it's 10 million at 25? That's $250 billion. 15 million. Even if it's only 20,000, $300 billion. 20 million illegals. Now to stay at that 300, we need to stay at 15,000. You think we're only giving them 15,000? When it costs $12,000 to send a kid through school, that's what the average cost is going to be. Putting it through just a public school. So a public school costing a child $12 each child, and we're putting these kids through our schools on our dime. How much taxes are they really paying? Oh, there are some. There's some paying. That's because they're using Social Securities that don't belong to them. So they're committing Social Security fraud. But you're giving them housing, you're giving them food, you're giving Medicaid benefits, all the benefits. Guarantee it's a minimum of 25,000. 25,000 a year. For 20 million. It's $500 billion. That's a $500 billion. Now that is local taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes. So that's all of it. I'm not including, I'm not saying that the federal government is, so it's not just the federal government. This is at all levels. So, whoop. Can I get back one slide? There we go. 25 million illegals, $625 billion. And that's probably a rough, low-cost estimate of what the illegals cost us in the country. But what is that cost? It's housing, schools, food, jobs, they're keeping the wages depressed. Medical, hospital doctors. What are they? They're modern day slaves. We want to believe that we were above everything and we got rid of slavery in the 1800s. We fought a war over slavery. We fought hard to get through the civil rights process. So we got rid of the Jim Crow laws that they so say are coming back. But who wants to bring them back? Well, the Democrats do. I guarantee you. Every one of them wants the Jim Crow laws, but they want them for the illegal, undocumented workers so that they're frightened to come out of the hole and go back home. Most of them most likely got here via human trafficking. So it cost them thousands of dollars to get here. Some lost their lives trying to get here. 250, 300, maybe 350,000 underage minors were lost by the Biden administration. Where are they? Oh, probably most likely, unfortunately, in some sort of sex trade somewhere and being sold as slaves. Is that what everybody wants in this world? Is that what we are in the United States of America? Are you freaking kidding me? You guys have no compassion. The most compassionate thing is to help find who they are and get them back to their home country. If they had a child here, they take their children back with them. That's the most compassionate thing to do. It's funny, in Mexico, they want all what they say, the gringos out. They want their country back because they realize Americans going to Mexico is raising the price of housing, raising the price of food, raising the cost of everyday living down there, and they don't want it. Well, it works two ways. We need the cost of living to come down here. Well, if you remove 20 million people, think of how much housing is freed up. That lowers the price of housing. That lowers the price of food. That lowers the price of a lot of things. But why has the U.S. allowed so many illegals into the country? Main reason appears to be to change demographics in the country on the census to control congressional districts. Think about it. California would have lost a lot of seats had they not had the census come out the way it did. New York would have lost seats. Illinois would have lost seats. Biggest gainers, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia, most likely the Carolinas. And folks, if you wonder why I kind of sound like I have an accent from all over the places, because I have. I've lived everywhere from, grew up in Michigan primarily, born in Illinois, lived in upstate New York, lived in Minnesota, Ohio. I call Tennessee my home now. Lived in Texas, Maryland. I've been all over the place, privileged to see it. Been as far east as France, watching a bit of the Tour de France. Been to the Philippines many times now, as you'll see in a different video if you go back and watch it, where I talk about the charity my wife and I run. Nothing's free in life. But man, what we're doing, why we want these people here. Now, I have some solutions. I don't know if they're right, and I'm not saying they're great. But we've got to find some way of doing things. So, again, there's no easy answer. But again, we got to think outside the box. Do the illegals need to go home? Yes, they do. We need to find a way that they go home. Whether you incentivize them with $1,000 a head to go home, you provide them with something, you put them on a bus, you send them home, you give them a chance. If they go home, they can come back. If we get a new guest worker program and we set it up right, and that means that they would have to go and apply in the country of their origin. They would have to have proof of medical exams for not only them but their family. so we know they're healthy. If they can't provide that from a doctor there, our embassies, where they would be applying, have doctors or could be staffed with a doctor that does physicals for families and checks them out and makes sure that they're not bringing things like measles or the mumps here. Or, worse yet, tuberculosis. Something we beat a long time ago. But it's making a comeback. Thanks for people coming across that border who have not had proper physicals and we don't know. Children of these people don't get U.S. citizenship automatically. Their parents are not legal citizens of the United States. They're not guests of the United States. You can't just give them citizenship. They have to be citizens. I have a niece and nephew that were born in the UK. For a time, they could have applied for dual citizenship, have a British passport and a U.S. passport. However, they did not do that in time, and Britain took that away. Why? They didn't want their population diluted with people who were not originally there and born there. Yet nowadays, sorry, but the UK is being invaded by all sorts of asylum seekers, and they're being flooded, and now their culture is being overrun. Because people aren't given time to assimilate into the new culture, they bring their culture with them and implement that. Right or wrong, it's wrong. You come to the United States, you're given a chance to come here. You need to blend in. The Hmong came to Minnesota after the Vietnam War and settled in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And absolutely wonderful people. The first generation people they speak almost no English. They haven't had to speak English because only a small portion of them actually needed to communicate with anybody who spoke English. And because they were such a big community and a tight-knit group, there were a lot of them that didn't have to learn English at all. Unlike previous generations that came across, we would have waves of immigration. We'd have a wave of immigration. Then we shut down immigration for a while, let people assimilate. Then we would open up immigration again. We didn't do that this time. We just flooded 15, 20, 30, I don't know. The numbers are astronomical. What we need to do is focus on the millions of people who are U.S. citizens. How about all the people that live in Section 8 housing in low-income areas? They have no purpose in life anymore. You've taken it away. You did that with the Great Society. You gave them welfare. How about what we do is we learn to separate this, and we build small housing communities for them. We give them a chance to come out of the projects, give them a house that is theirs, provided they go and do a job. And their job gives them a couple things. It gives them some pay. It gives them the ability to eventually do something else. Also eventually gives them full ownership of that property. So in a sense, their job is paying them not only cash, but it's paying them principal on the house that they're in. It gives them ownership. It gives them something to dream for. Because you shattered their dreams when they stuck them in the projects and you've left them there. They don't have any hopes of getting out. And the next generation has no further hopes because the generation they watched is already ruined. But you look at 7.2 million people on Section 8 housing. We have 211 million people who are of working age. We only have 161 million jobs filled. 7.5 million jobs unfilled. We have ways of doing this and incentivizing stuff without using tax dollars, and the more people that we get into jobs and doing things means more revenue for the federal government in the form of taxes. It means more revenue for the states in form of taxes, because the people are now working on their own and living, and they have purpose. They don't have purpose living in the fifth floor of a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 children running around and no father to help take care of. And the mother's alone. You've got the ability to set up some small homes. You do that. You do that in areas where jobs are needed for like factory work, or could be on the farms. I grew up on a farm. Farming is a noble task. It gives you purpose. There's different type of farming. You might be on a vegetable farm. You might be farming orchards. You might be working a ranch. There's lots of different types of farms. And lots of farms that need help. And these people could be given a purpose and then taught how to do something else. And the kids could eventually learn there's lots of other types of things to do. Give them a chance. Help find a way to get them out of the projects. You do that, you will solve a lot of the problems that exist. But it requires us all to think outside the box instead of that narrow focus where everybody is in line and the news media is saying, well, we can't do this. These people can't work. They're not able to work. Sure they are. You can find a job that they can do. And it's a matter of getting them out of the projects and into some place that they can do it. The farmers would have, maybe we've also gone about this all wrong with taxes. Play from the beginning. So minimum wage. It's funny. Los Angeles is going to implement a $30 an hour minimum wage. Way to kill your jobs there, Los Angeles. How many jobs do you think are going to be gone? Businesses will leave because they don't want to pay $30 an hour. That's what's going to happen. You're going to cost people their jobs. Why? Because you think the $30 minimum. Because you've raised the prices of everything so much. Do you think the cost of an item is just the fact that they had some raw materials and those raw materials went into a factory and then that factory produced an item? Who worked in that factory? Well, people did. How much were they paid? Well, it depends on how much the unions managed to rake out of the company to pay the employees. Every time you raise the costs of employment, you raise the price of the items that are being produced on the other end because somebody is going to pay that price. And it's not the company. Company doesn't cut their profits. Now, it depends on the type of profit market that you're going to get. Grocery stores and that, food, there's no budget in that. You clear very little money on that. It's other things that get higher costs. And those are the things that make a lot of money. Things that are sold, virtual things that you never really have, software that you don't really have rights to now. That's where your profit margin is. You want to talk profit margin? You talk about a software package that has been sold 1 billion times at $100 a pop. So that's where you're going to see. That's where the profit is. Service economies just move money from one person to another. You have to manufacture something to make money. And we somewhere along the way, and I've got a topic on it. It's the whole topic happens to be about where wealth is created. Service economies do not create wealth. Don't let anybody in the media ever tell you that you're going to become wealthy being as a service. You might become wealthy personally because you're providing a service, but you're taking wealth from everybody that you do business with. Just as when you do service with, so you buy service from somebody, he's taking your wealth. You're just trading wealth. It's a circle. You have wealth. You can afford to buy that service. He can afford to buy your service. You're both spending things back and forth. Money just changes hands. It's not increasing because I can't take your service and sell it to somebody else for more. Doesn't work that way. Or even for a fraction of what you did, because you did it for just me. Cutting down a tree costs money. That guy sells that tree to a lumber yard. He makes his money there. The lumber mill turns it into wood. Costs them some money to do that. They sell that for a profit. They got their money from that lumber. That lumber goes to a factory that makes furniture. That wood is then turned into a item of furniture. Sold. Wealth is created along the way. Now, when the person has that dresser, a few years down the road, he might decide that he doesn't want it anymore. He can sell it to somebody else. He might not get back what he got for it, but he got his use out of it, got some of his money back. That's wealth. Produced wealth all the way along the way. That's what we want. Illegals are taking our wealth, just like no different than all of the items we buy from overseas. We buy piles of stuff from China. They produce all the cheap stuff that we buy. Our wealth is going to China. Not coming back, because they don't buy much from us. So it doesn't come back. Our wealth is going to, likewise, being sent, as I showed on one of these slides, they sent $63 billion last year. $63 billion of the United States wealth went back to Mexico or Latin American countries. It exited the United States. Doesn't come back. Buys them their houses down there. When they get bored here, they just go home. They've got their stuff paid for. Where? Because they bought it from us. They convert that money to their own. Those dollars are then used to buy their stuff. That money doesn't come back to the United States. Well, it does in a different way, but that's just a transfer. Illegal immigration is wrong for many reasons. These people need to go home. ICE is doing their job. Karen Bass is wrong. Karen Bass and all of the other people running sanctuary cities, you're wrong. You're costing your own natural citizens, the people that were born and have lived here for generations. You're costing every one of them. You're risking their lives with some of the illegals. And you're fighting to even send them home. This needs to stop, and the people need to understand that the reason why things are so much more expensive is because the illegals here are raising the cost of housing. They're raising the cost of food. They're raising the price of everything that we deal with every day just by being here. It's no different than what they're complaining about in Mexico now. They want the people from the U.S. to leave and not come back. Why? Because the price of food has gone up. The price of housing has gone up. Well, the same thing happened here. It's why we want them to go home, to come back the right way. You come back the right way, we'll figure that out. We can figure out a guest worker program. We are smart enough. Well, I'm not saying that the current Congress is. I've heard some of them speak, and I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed not only in them as individuals, because I believe they should be smarter than that, but I'm disappointed in the people who voted for them. Because those people just voted because of a symbol by the name of the person. They don't understand what they're voting for. And how we solve that? Hey, I don't know. But we got to educate better. We got to do other things, other topics. But I do believe that we need to find a way to solve this. But the illegals, the cost of illegals, because of the cost alone, we need to send them home. We can figure out a guest worker program for them to come back. They can do it from their end. They can come back. If a farmer liked somebody, the farmer can sit down and figure out how to get into a new program where there's a guest worker program. The people can come back for 9 months and work on the farm, but 3 months they go home. They pay taxes. They're given some sort of ID number, and they pay taxes on that. And it would be different than, because they wouldn't have Social Security withheld. They're not a U.S. citizen. They wouldn't have Medicare and Medicaid stuff withheld. They're not a U.S. citizen. They would be taxed at a different rate. They would be taxed. We would track it. Goes to the federal government. Some of it would go to the state government. If the state did the same thing, don't know, don't care. It's not my problem. I live in a state that has no income tax. They're paying their sales tax. But just the cost of the cost of illegals, and I can put that chart back up. Take a snapshot of that. Pass this around. You think about the cost of this. This is what it costs us. And I guarantee it's costing at least $25,000 a year for every illegal that's here, because of everything that they do. And it just depends on how many illegals are here. But I guarantee that number is well over 15 million. So if it's on the upper end of the number that I've heard, wow, that's $1 trillion that we're spending overall between state, local, and federal. But hey, that's my rant. I hope you like the information. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for when I put up some more content. And I'm going to try to get regular at doing this. I'm going to start off with a bunch of them in a flurry and see what happens. Hopefully you like my content, and we'll keep it coming. But again, have fun out there. Life's tough. Find a joke, relax a little bit, and have fun in life. Wish you all the best. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you on the flip side.